All right, today let's talk about Schlage Everest and Schlage Everest 29 platforms. And in order to do that, I think it's best to start with some of the keyways. So don't worry about taking this all in at one time. I'm going to go over it little by little, and hopefully that's going to explain what these platforms are and what they can do for you. So it started with Schlage Everest in 1994. That's when they got the utility patent. And I will show you the design of the cylinder and all of that in a little bit, but we'll start with the keyways. So it started in 94, and 3 keyway families were created for it. You had B, the B keyway family, which was for small format interchangeable cores. You had C keyway family, which was open keyways. And what I mean by open, or at least what Schlage means by that, is that you could go to any supplier or distributor and obtain the blanks, the cylinders, the parts, everything you needed. And then you had D. D was for end user restricted, things like large facilities, colleges, hospitals, things like that. And it allowed the end user to have key control, but they didn't have to pay high security prices for it. So in other words, we can control the duplication of the keys and pay for that, but drill resistance, pick resistance, things like that, we're not really interested in. We just want that key control. So sell us a product we can have without all the extra stuff we really don't need. So that's what they did with the D keyway family. Like I said, it did get a utility patent which protected aftermarket production of blanks, materials, things like that, or at least the key blank for 20 years. That's the standard length of a utility patent. So 20 plus 1994 gives us 2014. That's when Everest came out. When the patent expired, or Everest 29 came out, when the patent expired for the original Everest, Schlage had to come up with something. I mean, we see this all the time. Medico did it when Keymark's patent expired. They came out with Keymark X4, which is now Medico X4. It's in your best interest as a manufacturer to keep a actively patented keyway system. And that's what Schlage did with Everest 29. So they kept the same 3 keyway families for now, or for 29. Small format interchangeable core became the R keyway family. The open keyways became the S keyway family. And then the end user restricted became the T keyway family. If you're astute, you'll notice that they go in order. In other words, B, C, D, R, S, T. So if you're familiar with one of them, you can memorize the other one if you know at least one of the other letters. And that's great for identifying keyways, ordering, things like that. If I know, for example, that I've got a B keyway, well, if I want to upgrade to the new Everest 29, I've got to go to the R family. So it kind of helps. It's very smart. I use it all the time. Another thing to point out is that, as you can see right here with this giant arrow, is that Everest 29 is backwards compatible. So what do I mean by that? All right, well, we'll start showing some of the cylinders. I guess I should have been better prepared. On the left, right here, this is a C123 Everest. And on the right, here is an S123 Everest. Now, if you remember our chart, C and S were the open keyways, with S being backwards compatible to C. What that means is I can take this S123 and it'll pass into a C123. Of course, it's not keyed up to that, but you get the point. I cannot take a C keyway family and place it into the S123. So what's the point of that? Well, if I've got a large facility that has hundreds and hundreds of doors, and they're all on the original Everest C keyway, for example, or D keyway, it doesn't matter, and I'm trying to upgrade them, piecemeal it, to the new product that has the patent control on it, I can duplicate my great grandmaster, my grandmaster, whatever, or the new grandmaster, whatever it may be, onto this S123 or the Everest 29 keyway, whatever you want to use. And that allows me to use that key on all the new patented products that I install, while also working on the existing Everest cylinders and cores that are already in place. So that's a very neat little thing they did there. So we'll go kind of back to the system a little bit. Specifically, what are the differences between the two as it relates to keys, because the cylinders and cores are pretty much all the same. So on the left, I have and I'll try to zoom in here. On the left, I've got a Everest key blank, and on the right, I've got an Everest 29. So how can I tell the difference? Well, a lot of different ways. First things first, this hole right here, that's indicative of Everest 29. Does that hole have a function? No, it doesn't. That is part of the manufacturing process. In order to achieve what they call the undermilling, which is this portion right here, in order to achieve that, apparently they have to drill through that hole. That's what I've been told, at least. Didn't have to do that with the original Everest, so obviously it does not have a hole underneath or below the key bow. Other differences, it's a slight difference, but the bow shape is different. You can see it's a lot more curved on the 29 as opposed to the original Everest. And then the coining on the blanks is different as well. You can see we've got Schlage right across Everest, big letters. In the Everest 29, we have the new Schlage logo. And then if you're curious, the patent numbers are on there. And obviously, the higher of the two is going to be the more modern version of the platform. And then also another great thing about Everest and Everest 29 is that they place the keyways on the back side. So there's no guesswork as to what you're looking at. As you can see, the first one was a C123 and this is an S123. And they'll even do that on the restricted ones too, like for example, a D1 whatever. It'll be marked on there. And it'll be marked on the plug of the core or cylinder. See, it's stamped right here. And that's great because there's no moving or parts interacting with the back of the plug, so it's not like that number is ever going to wear off. Let me zoom back out. Now, with all that out of the way, let's go over how to service these things. Whoops. Not much to them. There's really two finer points that I want to address that'll help you with servicing. Let me find the right key for this one. Yeah, that'll work. We're going to use an S123 and a C123 cylinder. So they come apart just like any other Schlage, no matter the keyway. You got to take the retaining cap or the cam off. We're going to place our key in and turn it. And then we're going to follow it out just as we would with a follower. Now, from the top, zoom back in. From the top, we can see we've got 6 chambers. That's pretty standard with Schlage now, commercial at least. But on the bottom, I'm going to dump these pins because I don't care. We can see what makes Schlage Everest unique, and that is the check pin right there. This check pin, when the key is not inserted, rises out. There's a spring underneath it that pushes it out. Actually, I'll take it apart and show you right there. There's the spring, here's the check pin, and here's the recess that it goes into. When the proper key is not inserted, in addition to the bottom pins at the normal shear line, this check pin is going to extend into the shell of the plug, which is that hole right there. So it provides positive locking in another portion of the cylinder core. And here is how it happens. A lot of people think it's this cutout right here. That's the part that engages the check pin. That's not true. It's this portion right here. It's this lip. And I'll explain that cutout portion in a second. But very simply, we insert our key. And as that lip engages it, it pulls it in. So now it's all the way into the plug, and the bottom pins would be presumably flush with the top of the plug, and we can rotate our key. So there's that. Now going back to what I just said, a lot of people think that this cutout portion is what engages it. It's actually this part. So why do they cut this out? Well, I didn't know that until yesterday. I was telling my buddy Jeff Moss about this video that I was doing and some of the stuff I'd figured out in preparation for it. And one of the things he was able to find and told me about was a 1999 catalog of Everest. Before Everest came out with the Everest Primus and then, the Everest 29 Primus and all of that, they had anticipated that if they were to have kept the metal or the undercut groove here throughout the entire length of the bow, you'd essentially be doling out what they now call sanitized blanks. In other words, blanks that could be converted to work with Primus. If you had the right tooling, you could cut away at this metal to interface with the sidebar's finger pins. So they figured out, no, we can't do that. We've got to protect against that, otherwise we're handing out those sanitized blanks. The original drawing showed all material removed from this portion here throughout the entire length of the key to the shoulder. That was the original drawing, and perhaps that's how they did it at first. I've never seen it like that, but I've only been doing this since 2007, so that leaves an 8-year gap between when they first wrote about it and when they anticipated deployment up until I started. But I've never seen it. I think what they figured out was that we don't have to remove all this material. We can just remove this little bit. We can save on time, and we can save on material wear to our tooling. For example, if we're only cutting out, I guess that looks to be 2 positions, maybe 1, but whatever. If we can just remove that little bit and prevent it outright, we don't have to bother with the rest of it. So there's some neat trivia, thanks to Jeff Moss, about the undercutting of the key blanks. Now let's talk about servicing. Actually, to do that, is this a C120? Yes, okay, this is C123. When you're keying these up, or when you're keying up any standard pentumbler for that matter, we tend to hold our plug with the chamber holes facing towards us so that we can load and observe to make sure everything's at the shear line. Well, with Everest, you got to be careful, because unless you keep your finger right there, you can see that check pin's wanting to come out. So you either have to be astute and memorize that you got to keep your finger there at all times, or you can modify a key blank. Place the key blank in there and it'll hold it for you. So now you can pin it just like normal. So how do we modify that key blank? Well, it's very simple. In this example, I've got a C000 key. That's the all section keyway for the C keyway family. And basically what that means is that this will pass C123, C145, etc., etc. Fortunately, you can't use this for, say, D, or if I had a S000 key, I couldn't use it to pass D or anything like that. It still kind of follows the same logic with the keyways as regards to backwards compatibility. But in this case, I've got a C000, so it'll pass the whole C keyway family. I cut all my depths to 9 in all positions. So I had 9, 9, 9, 9, 6 positions. Basically a bump key if you want to be honest about it. And then I filed away at those peaks between each cut. In other words, if you can imagine what a bump key would look like here, we'd have all these low cuts, and then we'd have peaks from the key in those spots. So by filing away at all of these, I can insert the key to hold that check pin in place, and then I can pin. Well, since the Schlage key bitting specification, the classic one, only has 9 depths, no matter if I'm just pinning to one key or if I'm master keying, I don't have to worry about a pin protruding beyond the plug. In other words, I can reassemble it without having to worry about those bottom pins projecting and binding or preventing insertion of the plug outright. So that's why we cut to 9. So I can pin up ever how I want. In fact, I will pin this one back real quick so that I'll show you what I mean by that. So I've got my pins loaded, my check pins held into place, and then I can just place my plug back in, test it out with my key, and I'm good to go. So you're going to be working on these a lot. Go ahead and get one of these blanks or modify what you have. If you're only going to be working on one keyway, C123, C145, something like that, go ahead and modify you a blank. It'll save you down the road, trust me. The other thing to know about these has to do with shimming them. Now, if I'm shimming these, let's see, that's a 145. Let's go with this one, C123. If I'm shimming these, I'm going to shim it just like I normally would. I'm going to place my shim in the back of the core. Of course, it's going to want to pull out because I've got the right key in there. Yeah, should have came better prepared. Anyway, so just imagine I've shimmed this cylinder. Matter of fact, I'll just give the illusion that I have. So I've got it shimmed, but I can't rotate the key. That's because the check pin is still blocking me. No problem. The check pin on all cylinder formats for Everest, key and lever, mortise, rim, doesn't matter. The check pin is always visible. I mean, they've got to drill it from the outside, obviously, in order to create a hole for it to fit into. So we've always got it visible. So very simply, after you're done shimming the bottom pins, all you have to do is press in on the pin with a probe or similar tool while rotating your key, and we've shimmed it. So that's pretty much all there is to it. These things service and pin up exactly like Schlage, C, any of the obverse or reverse keyways, any of those cylinders. Same principle. The only thing different we've got is basically this check pin. And that really only matters when keying up with the modified blank that I showed you, and when disassembling by shimming, when we've got to satisfy that check pin. But other than that, that's pretty much the Schlage the Schlage Everest and Everest 29 platform. I did not go over small format, the B and R keyways. That really deserves its own family, and I'm going to talk about that at length in the near future. I just wanted to focus today on the open and end-user restricted keyways in the non-IC, small format IC platforms. If you want to know a little bit more about this, I've got the Everest rekeying manual on lockreference.com. You can just go to lockreference.com. There's a search bar, just type in Everest manual, or if you want to dial down to it, you just click on library, locks, cores and cylinders, and then under the manufacturer's literature tab, under Schlage, it's the Everest Everest manual, kind of giving away clues about what a new video might be in the future. But yeah, I'm going to go over eventually. I don't have a rhyme or reason to it, but I'm going to go over everything in the Schlage platform. We'll go over Primus. We'll go over the Everest 29 SL. We'll go over it all. But for now, starting small baby steps with Everest and Everest 29. So thank you for watching.